Hello and welcome to Sierra Make. For today's video, I tried to make some gluten-free oatmeal carrot cookies because I had all this extra carrot pulp from juicing it earlier. These videos always tend to be me making stuff for the first time, so I will note any changes that I'd recommend as we go through the video. Right now, I'm just measuring out 1 cup of carrot pulp. If you don't have carrot pulp, just use shredded carrots. And I'm taking out any weird chunks that you sometimes get from juicing carrots. For the recipe today, I just took a regular non-gluten-free recipe from crunchycreamysweet.com and switched it out with gluten-free flour and gluten-free oats. So this recipe calls for 1.5 cup of oats, 1 cup of flour, 3/4 teaspoon of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger, an 1/8 teaspoon of ground cloves, a 1/2 cup of salted butter instead of just salt and unsalted butter, a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, a 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar, 1 large egg, 1 cup of shredded carrots, or in this case, carrot pulp, and a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. You know the drill. Link to the original recipe is in the description, as well as the ingredients and all of my changes. First things first, we're going to grab a medium-sized mixing bowl and toss in our 1.5 cups of gluten-free oats, our 1 cup of gluten-free flour. Wait, I take that back because these ended up being a little dry. I recommend using the 1-to-1 ratio, which is 120 grams of gluten-free flour. Moving on, we're adding 3/4 teaspoon of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, the 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, the 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger, and the 1/8 teaspoon of ground cloves. Now in a second mixing bowl, we are going to whisk together our butter, which we have melted and cooled a little bit so it's not still hot, our granulated sugar, our brown sugar that we packed in, and our egg and vanilla. Once that's all mixed together, go ahead and fold in your carrots. Now it's time to combine the wet and dry ingredients and mix it all up. Now that we have our cookie dough, we are going to cover it and let it chill in the refrigerator for at least 2 hours. Once you're ready to bake your cookie dough, go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Line your baking sheet with some parchment paper and scoop out little 2-inch balls of cookie dough. Now it's time to pop it in the oven. The recipe said to bake it for 8 to 10 minutes, recommending 9, but for me, I had to bake it twice that amount, so 15 minutes. I baked it for so long because I wanted it to firm up. As you can see, it was a little squishy, and that was mostly because I had too much flour and not enough wet ingredients. But here's the end result. As you can see, they're a little dry, they're a little misformed, they don't exactly look like cookies, but my family said that they tasted fine and that they'd be even better if there was some jam to them. And the flavoring kind of tasted a little bit like pumpkin bread, even though it was carrot instead. Overall, not a success, but also not a failure because they still tasted good. I mean, they're cookies with oats and carrots. You know, it tastes like oats and carrots. But here's a bit of a bonus for you. I actually made a second batch of cookies because I had so much leftover pulp. But for this second batch, I had to change up the recipe a little bit because I was out of gluten-free oats. And I also wanted to make them a little bit more protein-rich. I didn't think that they'd turn out so different than the first batch. So I didn't actually record myself making them, but I will pop up the ingredient list and ingredient changes right now. Basically, for the second batch of cookies, I switched out the flour for unflavored protein powder, and I used non-gluten-free oats. I was also a 1/4 cup short of shredded carrots, so I used 2 tablespoons of coconut flour and 2 tablespoons of shredded coconut. And then I figured, why not stick with that coconut theme, and I switched out the butter with coconut oil. All of that resulted in a cookie that was pretty bready in texture, but honestly, it was really good. I liked it a lot, and I liked that it was using protein powder and still had that nice texture to it. Anyways, that's all for this video, so please hit that like button if you liked the video. Comment down below which version of this cookie you'd like to try to make, and please subscribe because I post new content every Friday at 3. Thank you for watching.